time, I'd like to call to order the Twinsburg City Council meeting for July 12th. Shannon, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Fury?
Present.
Mr. Bellin?
Here.
Mr. Post?
Here.
Mrs. Walker?
Present.
Mrs. Labby? Mr. Scafidi?
Here.
Mr. Barr?
Here.
Okay. Please stand for the invocation and pledge of allegiance led by Greg Bellin.
We ask for guidance and direction in all city matters before us tonight. We give thanks to be able to be together. Let us continue to strive to make our community a better place. Help us to work together, and may we give our best always. Amen. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Next on our agenda is the election of council officers. At this time, I'd like to announce that I am resigning my position as council president, as I would be in violation of council rules as a candidate for mayor. With that, I would like to nominate Scott Barr. He is the longest-serving council person who has not had the opportunity to be council president. I make that nomination. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any other nominations? Okay, Shannon, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mr. Scafidi?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Post?
Yes.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Okay, congratulations, Mr. Barr. You are now running the meeting.
All right, thank you. I believe we also now, at this time, would need to make a election for the council vice president. At this time, I would like to elect Mr. Fury to serve out the balance of his term as he was prior council vice president for the balance of this year. Do I have a second for Mr. Fury?
I'll second.
Okay. Are there any other nominations for council vice president at this time? All right, hearing none. Shannon, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Barr?
Yes?
Mr. Post?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Scafidi?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
All right. Moving on to item number 4, the approval of the minutes from the regular council meeting on June 28th, 2022. Has everyone had a chance to review those minutes? And if so, is there any discussion regarding the minutes?
Mr. President, I make a motion that we accept the minutes as submitted.
Is there a second to Mr.
Second.
Fury's motion? Mrs. Walker seconds. If that's the case, Shannon, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Scafidi?
Yes.
Mr. Post?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mr. Barr?
Yes. The approval of the minutes passes 7-0. Moving 6-0. Yeah, my apologies. Thank you, Mr. Bellin. Moving on to item number 5, awards and presentations. Shannon, do we have any awards or presentations this evening?
There is none.
Okay. That brings us to agenda item 6, which is audience participation. Shannon, who do we have this evening?
First, we have Mr. Baldwin.
Wonderful. Good evening, Mr. Baldwin.
Good evening, everybody. First of all, I'm thinking of moving to the street the ex-mayor lives on. I figure it's the only way I can get my street asphalted to drive on also. And also to sell stuff from my house at 3310 Cannon Road to said street so I can get more money for it. So I don't have to think about a problem getting a garage sale permit, right? Okay. Okay, second, this is very serious business. I would like to know how many people in attendance tonight know what tomorrow, the 13th of July, is. Thank you. Thank you very much. That makes me feel a little bit better. For those who don't remember, it's 14 years since Officer McTarrion was murdered. Badge number 45, Twinsburg Police Department. I stood 6.5 hours, 83 degrees, no lunch, at attention, at the officer's only funeral, caught the one fainting next to me, grabbed him with some help before he fell on his weapon. I wonder how many people here could stand in that heat. I know one that could because we did it before. Does anybody else think they could stand that and remember that? Because it will stick with you the rest of your life, or if it stuck with me. And I still attend the memorial over here. Okay. I'm still a little confused about the property east of McDonald's on Road 82. I was told that CIC owns the property and council has nothing to do said property, but I'm sure I have seen city workers on our property taking a good look at the dead trees on the property. Very dangerous. When I was in high school, I had a teenage boy riding in my truck with me learning how to deliver building supplies. I get out of the truck to go home for supper. 1 hour later, a teenage boy was killed on the way home in the truck I was driving from a dead tree falling on him. I will never forget that because I drove that truck and I was helping him learn the business. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Baldwin.
Thank you.
Next, we have Steve Hummel.
Mr. Hummel?
Mayor Scafidi, council, audience. I want to address the June 14th council meeting. I didn't get a chance to respond that night. And I just have to say that I'm quite disappointed in what happened at council that night. Not about only the first reading and it went through. We're all hammering through all that. It's about how I was personally treated in this room by the city planner. My name was invoked. The city planner used my experience and expertise to push the plan and did not give me a chance to refute what she said. I'm not trying to pick at the city planner, but she is ignorant toward the subject, and I was trained for 8 years in that subject, and I should have had the chance to respond. And that's all I wanted to do. According to Robert's rules, I had every right to respond to that, and that was what I was trying to do. I was calm, I was collected, and I felt I had that right. And it was very disappointing at the response that I received when I tried to do that. I had a lot of opposition. It was very unprofessional. I've always respected law enforcement, and God bless Josh. But that night, when I tried to do what I felt was right for myself and my residents and my rights, I had an officer of the law place their hands on me and tell me I needed to settle down. I wasn't doing anything to have that done. Now, she was nice about it, but you don't put your hands on somebody like that when I had the right to respond to that situation. Now, I saw on Facebook these things. I don't go on Facebook. I'm not on Facebook. I'm busy doing other things. It's a good outlet. But I heard, boy, that guy must have been humiliated. I wasn't humiliated. I know my business. I know what I do. I've been trained in what I do. What it was to me is that the city should have been humiliated by the way I was treated that night, by somebody invoking me and then not even acknowledging that I was there, and from what I understand had a smirk as I was being told to sit down. And I mean, that is over the top to me, and that cannot stand. And I would like to file a formal complaint on that subject. The rest of it we'll hash out. I don't need to talk about the design, anything else. That's coming down the road. What I'm talking about is the way we got treated that night. We have done nothing in this room since we came here about this project but try to voice our concerns. And sometimes we've been frustrated, sometimes we've been upset, and I think anybody would be in our shoes, and emotions have come to head at times. But it's an important subject and it needs to be addressed. And I feel that I needed to come up and say something, because I can't let that stand in my life at all. That is not a good thing, and that's not something that Twinsburg should condone. And I'm going to let it go at that. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hummel, for sharing that. I will discuss this with the rest of council and Mrs. Collins and the mayor, and see what we can come up with. Who else do we have here?
That's all we have this evening.
Okay. Again, thank you. Moving on to council and committee reports. Why don't we start with Mr. Post?
I have not attended, my meetings have not met, my committees have not met, but I did attend the Safety Committee meeting this evening. I did attend the Recycle Tour with the Environmental Commission a few weeks ago, and Mr. Chuck Bonacci spoke on that earlier, gave a great presentation. And we are looking to, on the Recycle Committee, as you mentioned earlier, putting out information with the sewer bill. One of the things that we want to do is continually put out information with the recycle bill, because it's a great avenue to teach the community. So that's going to be a lot of recycle information will be coming that way. So that is my report. Thank you very much.
Wonderful, thank you. Mr. Fury?
Thank you and good evening. The ARB had a meeting on 7/7. There were 2 items on the agenda. Case 220738, which was a Burgers to Beer, is putting a patio, was approved 4-0. And case 220739, which the Verizon sign is being replaced with just an address sign, because they're moving from that building. The next regularly scheduled ARB meeting is August 4th, if there are applicants. I also attended the Safety Committee meeting tonight. We have a CIC meeting scheduled for 5 p.m. on 7/14, and I have a JEDI meeting scheduled. The next JEDI meeting is scheduled for September 12th. A month ago, I talked about oil and gas pricing and things that you need to be concerned of as residents. Currently, the best deal that you can get for electric service to your home is with NOPEC. They're the lowest person. If you compare the NOPEC website to apples for electric on the PUCO website, you will see that that is the best deal. My electric bill is going to double this year, even when I have that best deal. Just like gasoline has gone up into the mid-4s to $5, energy overall is increasing. The city, to Mr. Mayor Scafidi, has the city struck a price with our gas aggregate as of yet?
No, it has not.
Okay. So on apples to apples for gas, there are rates currently at $6.50, which is again about double what we were at. We were at $2.82 before. We're expecting to get a rate in from our consultant to set a gas price, which with the aggregation that we have in place with the city, you can get in and out of the aggregation without any penalty. If you've got a current deal, you need to check your bill and find out when your contract ends, because if you end early, you could be subject to a $100 to $150 penalty fee for early withdrawal. So I think you need to take a look at your gas bills, see where you're getting your gas currently, and you should look on the website, start to make some decisions. Oil and gas prices are traditionally lower in June, July, and August than they will be in the 3rd and 4th quarter and 1st quarter. If you try to do this in January, you might be looking at triple the cost. So please take a look at those for you. Crane's Business had a nice article on remote working and how that's affecting both commercial real estate as well as tax income for municipalities. And that's something that we're aware of in Twinsburg as well. Recently, my office closed, and now I work full-time out of Twinsburg. So I am a remote worker in the eyes of my company. My company will now bill or send my income tax to Twinsburg as opposed to Solon when I had an office there. It's my understanding that many people go in the office, like my wife, once or twice a week and work out of their house the rest of the time. That's a hybrid worker. Most companies now will allow you to have a hybrid status where they'll pay the local tax to Twinsburg or to where you live or where you're working out of, the same way we worked with Cleveland Clinic to make sure that the doctors that were there, we got that revenue from them. So that's something that I hope that we continue to communicate to our residents, that if you're working remotely at your house, please talk to your company about getting the income tax transferred into the city of Twinsburg, because they might not do it automatically. And we are losing some companies that, again, because those people are going remote back to where they live. So just something to think about. This Friday is the McTarrian Open. Brian Donato has sold it out. It's going to raise over $10,000 for the McTarrian Scholarship Funds. And as Mr. Baldwin pointed out earlier, tomorrow is the 14th anniversary of the death of Officer McTarrian. We're honored to have Mayor Prokop in the audience, and I remember being with her a lot at that time. Mr. Scaffidi's here, Mr. Steele as well. So please keep him in your prayers tomorrow, and thank you. And lastly, I have a Twinsburg Fire Local 3630 is having a golf outing at Glen Eagles, and that will be held on August 26th. And the money they raise goes to both the McTarrian Scholarship Fund as well as Twinsburg baseball and softball leagues. If you're interested, you can contact the Twinsburg Firefighters Local Union. They're on Facebook. They have a phone number at, they don't, it's just local 3630@gmail.com to get information, and it's on a website. And that's all I have this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Fury. Mrs. Walker.
Good evening, everyone. I did attend the Safety Committee. Assistant Chief Bossel did a great job on that. Also, as for Mr. Fury, he did state that the Jedi Committee, it didn't meet yesterday. That was postponed. We will be meeting sometime in September. Also, I did attend an open house for the Sick City CPR, and it's helping others save lives. It's a new facility that has just come to the city of Twinsburg, and it's on the corner of, is that Gettysburg?
East Idlewood.
East Idlewood, on the corner. So if you need any help regarding CPR and learning how to do that, please consider Sick City CPR. That's all I have to report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Walker. Mr. Bellin.
Thank you. Good evening. I hope everyone had a happy and safe Independence Day. I also attended this evening's Safety Committee meeting. I will defer to Mr. Barr for that report. The next Golf Advisory Board meeting will be held on Tuesday, July 19th, 6:30 p.m. here in Council Chambers. The next meeting of the Finance Committee will be on Tuesday, August 23rd, 6 p.m. here in Council Chambers. And the next Public Works meeting will be on Tuesday, November 8th at 6 p.m. here in Council Chambers. Nothing further this evening. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Bellin. We'll give my report at this time. The Safety Committee met this evening here in Council Chambers at 6 o'clock. Assistant Chief Basso came in and, as usual, did an excellent job discussing a city and school district joint full-scale exercise that is scheduled to take place in October of this year. That is going to be a real-time scenario that looks at a lot of different areas of operation and areas of responsibility to deal with casualty situations involving the school and the city. And the chief will be sharing more details as they become available. We also discussed the weather warning sirens, and we're taking a look at some options for continuing the existing siren system, as well as moving forward with our current system of notifying people electronically through text alerts, emails, and push notifications on cellular phones. There was also some discussion about parking prohibition in the city. It is currently in the ordinance that there is no parking on any city street. One of the things that was discussed was specifically the hydrant sides of the streets in the city, perhaps putting up some notifications and some signage to just remind folks that if they do park on the street, which they shouldn't, to please don't park on the hydrant side of the street so that our first responders have access to those hydrants. Chief Basso is unable to report this evening about the fire department. However, they did have 337 calls for service last month, which brings them year-to-date up, call volume-wise, approximately 23%. So our hats off to the fire department. They are working very hard. Now their calls year-to-date are up 23%. Since we're talking about safety committee, Mr. Baldwin, again, thank you for mentioning Josh. He is in our thoughts. City employees, as well as anybody else, there will be a moment of silence observed for Officer McTiernan tomorrow, which is Wednesday, July 14th, at 9:15 in the morning. July 13th at 9:15 in the morning, yeah. And that, again, marks the 14th anniversary of his Into Watch. All of us need to remember that Josh's sacrifice should never be forgotten. And he's in our thoughts and prayers this evening. Moving from that, the Planning Commission had a meeting on June 27th. I was not in attendance as I was out of town. There were two items that were discussed at the Planning Commission. The first in the work session was a revised site plan for the Starbucks coffee shop at 2728 East Aurora Road. There were some issues that needed further clarification and discussion, so that site plan conversation was tabled for that meeting to be discussed at a future meeting. The next item was a final site plan review for Holt Orthodontics on Darrow Road. And that item was discussed and voted on by Planning Commission, and there was it was approved to forward to council for consideration, so it did pass Planning Commission. So at this time, I'd like to make a motion to affirm the decision of the Planning Commission for the Holt Orthodontics final site plan phase 1. This would be a motion to confirm the recommendation of the Planning Commission for the approval of the site plan and the conditions for the project known as Holt Orthodontics, specified as phase 1, date stamp received June 21st, 2022. Do I have a second for that motion?
I'll second.
Mr. Fury seconds. Is there any discussion about the affirmation of Planning Commission's recommendation? Okay, hearing none, I'd like to call the roll. Shannon, would you call the roll?
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mr. Post?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mr. Scafidi?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
All right, the motion of affirmation passes 6-0. That does conclude my report for this evening. We'll allow Mr. Scafidi to give his council a report and subsequent mayor's report. Mayor.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Good evening. As they both run in together, because I'm last on the council list, and then my next report would be the mayor's report, so I will give them both. First of all, under the council report, my committees have not met. The BZA doesn't have another meeting scheduled at this point, so there is no report there from Board of Zoning Appeals. Under the mayor's report, I've been honored to sit in this seat for the next 4 months, and I too will be running for this seat as well. But I have 5 days under my belt right now. There was 6 days now under my belt, and just to it started out last Tuesday because we had the holiday. Tuesday started out with I had all department heads coming in to see me every hour, every day of the week last week, and it was merely just to get our expectations of one another. I wanted to see what they expect of their mayor and also what I expect of them, and just to see what some of their goals were and some of their plans for their departments were, and to make sure that we're on the same page, because as I said before, nobody does this job alone. And so I need a good team together, and we've got to be on the same page. And I hate to overuse the word team, but we are a team here, and we're going to be working together, and we're working together for this community. So, we had some very good conversations, and it went very well. I think we our likes and our dislikes, and I think we're all going to get along well. And it really takes a good staff here, as well as a council that can work together, that we're going to be able to do the best job for you, all the people of our community. And that's really my goal at this point. Next thing, I had an opportunity to meet some really nice residents that I hadn't met before. They wanted to come in and not only just meet the mayor, but they wanted to talk about some concerns and issues. So that's really a really good part of the job, is being able to meet people that maybe you haven't had the opportunity to talk with before. And so I enjoyed that part of it as well. So week 1 went down very good, and I really enjoyed it. Onto the business then that we've been taking care of as well at the same time. You know, as you know, Darrow Road is closed right now at the concrete company for the railroad track repair. That'll stay closed till the end of the week. And then Monday, automatically, weather permitting, Glenwood Road is going to close. Darrow Road will open up again. Glenwood will close at the railroad tracks at the bottom of the hill, and that'll be closed for a week as well. So there will be detour signs posted. At the roundabout is going to be a little tricky, because coming down the hill, you really have nowhere to go to get around there. There's not a detour. So there's going to be detours around the roundabout to keep going south on 91 down to McTarrion Parkway. So that'll be the detour there. As Mrs. Walker mentioned, I was at the Six City CPR ribbon cutting the other day, and you know, it's always nice as a community. I think our number one thing is business retention, and it's very important that, you know, with cities all vying for new businesses, and that's important as well, but I think saving the businesses that we already have here and continuing relationships and growing those relationships are really important. But anytime that we could have a new business come to town, whether it be small or large, I think that's a great thing for our community. And so it was my pleasure to be able to stand there and go to this the ribbon cutting and welcome them. And it's a really good it's a really nice facility there, and I think she's going to do a lot of good things here in the city of Twinsburg. We had an opportunity to meet with Andy Miller from the Twins Day Committee, as well as with our fire department and our service department. We all sat down to meet to discuss the upcoming parade and the festival that's going on. I think safety is our number one issue at this point, or our number one concern. Let's put it that way. It's not an issue yet, but it's our concern, given the fact of things that are going on all over the world, and here in Chicago most recently with their parade. So we've got a number of safety measures in place that our police chief came up with, and our Lieutenant Donato came up with as well. And I think we were all on the same page there too. So I'm looking forward to Twins Days being here in town, and a safe weekend for all of us. We had Dan Segelka. We had a retirement here. Dan Segelka's been with our building department for 30 years, and he's done an awesome job there in the building department. He knows this community. He knows the people. He knows the business. He knows all the city. He knows our codes, and he's really done a great job. Dan is going to be sorely missed. I know I'm going to miss him, and I know the building department's going to miss him as well. But it was his time, 30 years in, and he's ready to go enjoy his family and his fishing and everything else that Dan likes to do on his time off. So again, I'd publicly like to just wish Dan well. I think the world of Dan, and I wish him and his family the best of a retirement and best of health to all of them. One other thing, we had Officer Travis Albertino from our police department. He just returned from deployment in Iraq. He's been gone for over a year now, and he just returned, I think, this week. And I would just like to welcome Officer Albertino back, welcome him back to Twinsburg, and welcome back to our police department. I think we're all going to be better for having Officer Albertino back. So again, I wish him well as he returned from Iraq. Finally, I think somebody mentioned the golf outing this Friday, the McTarrion golf outing, and I'd like to give a shout out to Lieutenant Brian Donato, because anybody that's there can see how much goes into this thing, and it's usually a huge success, and a lot of that's because of Brian Donato. So I just want to thank him for all of his efforts in putting that together, and you'll see on Friday anybody that attends. If you're not there, I'm sure we'll report on it when we come back from our break, but it's going to be a great success, and thank you to him. we've all brought up Josh McTarian tonight, and I don't know if this would be a good forum to do this, but I know there's going to be a moment of silence tomorrow. But for those that can't be there, if you don't mind, President, I'd like to call for a moment of silence for our officer, Joshua McTarian, if we can. Thank you very much. May he rest in peace, always. And that's the end of my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
I think we have, Sarah here, you have a report tonight, Sarah?
Sure.
Okay. That's all the departments will have then.
Perfect, I appreciate it. Ms. Bucci-Gross.
Good evening, council.
Good evening.
The June books are closed and those financials are available online. The 2021 financial audit has been completed and our auditors have submitted the report to the state of Ohio. So when the state releases that report, we'll publish it online and send it out to everyone, along with the city's first popular annual financial report that we went over at a previous finance committee meeting. Over the summer, we'll be working on the budget. Capital Improvement Board meetings will begin on August 16th, and we also have the Treasury Investment Board will be held on August 15th. That's all I have. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. All right, item number 10, legislation, ordinance 61, 2022.
An ordinance adopting the tax budget for the city of Twinsburg, Ohio for the fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2023, and submitting the same to the county auditor and declaring an emergency.
As Mr. Fury stated earlier, this is the third reading of this ordinance, and we're putting out an emergency so we can get it to the auditor in a timely fashion. So at this time, I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules and place ordinance 61, 2022 on its third and final reading and declare it an emergency. May I have a second?
A second.
Mr. Bellin seconds. Again, the reason for the emergency is that we just want to get this to the county by the tax deadline. Any discussion further on the emergency? Okay, hearing none. Shannon, please call the roll.
Mr. Bard?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Post?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mr. Scafidi?
Yes.
All right, the emergency clause passes 6-0. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance 61, 2022 as an emergency. May I have a second?
A second.
Mr. Bellin seconds. Any further discussion on 61, 2022? Hearing none. Shannon, please call the roll.
Mr. Bard?
Yes?
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mr. Post?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mr. Scafidi?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Okay, ordinance 61, 2022 passes as an emergency, 6-0. At this time, I'd like to move on to ordinance 71, 2022.
An ordinance authorizing the city to enter into an agreement for the acquisition of a 2022 John Deere 50G excavator and declaring an emergency.
Okay. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules and place ordinance 71, 2022 on its third and final reading and declare it an emergency. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Scafidi seconds. Again, the reason for the emergency is to get the equipment ordered as soon as possible, pending a 25% price increase, I believe, in the next quarter. Any further discussion on the emergency clause? Okay, hearing none. Shannon, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Bard?
Yes.
Mr. Scafidi?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mr. Post?
Yes.
The emergency clause passes 6-0. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance 71, 2022 as an emergency. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Scafidi seconds. Any further discussion on 71, 2022?
The cost of the equipment is down to $56,300. We're getting $17,000 in trade-in for the old unit. So,
Thank you, Mr. Fury. Shannon, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Bard?
Yes?
Mr. Scafidi?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Post?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
yes.
All right. Ordinance 71, 2022 passes as an emergency, 6-0. Moving on to unfinished business, new business, or miscellaneous. Mr. Bellin.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to playing in the Josh McTarian Memorial Golf Outing on Friday. I would like to thank everyone involved in making that happen, and as the mayor said, especially Lieutenant Donato for spearheading this event. It really is great, and just may he rest in peace always. Nothing further. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bellin. Mrs. Walker.
I have nothing. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Fury?
Wish the residents a safe and happy summer break, and thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fury. Mr. Post?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Barr. I have two things. Number one, I went to the kayak trip from the Rotary this weekend. I helped get people out of their kayaks, and it was a lot of fun. We were there. I was there for a while, and I know you guys were there, and some people were there. And it was a really good time. And for those of you who are not familiar with the Rotary, they do a lot of great events within the community, and anyone interested in attending Rotary functions, the meetings are a few meetings a month, and it's just all about giving back to the community. So if anybody's interested, there still are a few slots left, which is why I'm bringing it up for this Sunday's kayak trip. You can sign up online. You can find it online, and there's a couple times left. The second thing, which reminded me a second ago, as I poured my water bottle into my Yeti mug here, is that I'm going to ask you for my first thing as mayor. There are no recycle bins in the in City Hall here to recycle this. I know there's one in the back office. There's a bin that I was told I can use next to the copy machine, but I think that's a paper one. Can we look to get a way to recycle stuff in City Hall? And I guess we could then say, maybe somebody, I'm not sure familiar with what buildings do and do not have recycle options, but if we could just try to make sure that collectively a lot of our buildings have a recycle option, I think that'd be great. So,
Mr. Post, consider it done. Done.
Thank you.
It's easy.
I appreciate that. So, in that, I will be taking this home for Mr. Bonacci.
Take my two.
And that is my story. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Post. I'll be brief. I'd just like to thank everybody for attending. Again, I'd like to thank the residents of Old Mill for coming out and supporting something they believe in. It's good to see people get involved. I hope everybody has a wonderful summer and enjoys this good weather that we're having. That's it for me. Mr. Scafidi, anything this evening?
I have nothing further either. Like he said, this is our last meeting for the summer. We'll be back at the end of August, and I'd like to wish everybody a happy, healthy, safe summer. Enjoy it, and we'll see you back at the end of August. That's it. Good night.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Vazana, anything this evening?
No, sir.
Okay. Mrs. Collins?
Just congratulations, Mr. Barr, on your council presidency.
Thank you. Mrs. Butcher-Gross? Okay, wonderful. So council is again on some recess. Our next meeting is scheduled for August 23rd. Right now we do have an absent member. Ms. Labby is unable to attend this evening, so I'd like to make a motion to excuse Mrs. Labby from tonight's meeting. May I have a second?
Second.
Mrs. Walker seconds. Shannon, please call the roll.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mr. Scafidi?
Yes.
Mr. Post?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
The motion passes 6-0. So at this time, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the council meeting at 8:09 p.m. Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Fury seconds. Shannon, please call the roll.
Mr. Barr?
Yes?
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mr. Scafidi?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mr. Post?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0. Meeting adjourned.